Master Roshi, Bulma, Krillin and Oolong were playing poker while Chi-Chi and Vital were playing with Marin. Yamcha suddenly came into the room. Hey guys. Yamcha called out to the group. What's up Yamcha? Vital asked to the Scar Man. Well, it's fusion time. Trunks and Goten and Ash and Paul have mastered the form. Yamcha told, knowing they were going to test the fusion out now. So the boys are ready to give it a try, huh? Roshi said, knowing this was something they had to see. Cool, I say we all go watch. Krillin said, getting up along with the others. Yeah, this should be interesting. Bulma said, walking along. Are Trunks and Goten one boy, or Ash and Paul mommy? Marin asked to her mother. No, not yet sweetheart, 18 said as he carried her daughter out of the palace. The whole group left the palace to see the guardian of the earth, his assistant and the boys out and about. So if you could fuse together with somebody and it could be anybody in the world, who would it be, hypothetically? Krillin asked to his master. Gosh, that's a tough one, but I think I'd pick your old girlfriend Marin. Roshi said, remembering Krillin's ex. Right on, bald and beautiful, so deadly. Krillin said. Oh dear, what are we going to call our new combined sons, Bulma? Chi-Chi asked to the blue-haired women. Huh. Bulma was confused. Let's see, Goten and Trunks, what about Trunkton? That's weird, maybe something like Gotrunks would be better, and I can't think of something for Ash and Paul. Chi-Chi said, trying to think of what to call the boys after the fusion. Hey, why are you racking your brain? The fusion's only temporary, it only lasts about 30 minutes or so. Bulma said, thinking this wouldn't be a worry to think about. True, but still a name would be nice. Chi-Chi said as the group finally made it to Piccolo and the boys. This oughta be good. Yamcha said, walking over. You guys go first, me and Paul will go second. Ash said as he and Paul moved to Piccolo's side to wait and see how Goten and Trunks perform first. Goten and Trunks nodded as he powered up their energies. Piccolo was keeping an eye on their energies to make sure they don't get out of sync. Hey Trunks, hold your power back a bit. Piccolo said, noticing Trunks' energy starting to go too far. I can try, there. Trunks said, fixing the problem. Yes, that's perfect, your levels are exactly the same, okay whenever you're ready. Piccolo said as the boys nodded and Ash and Paul watched carefully to see if these two make a mistake or not. This is it. Yamcha said, getting excited to see this fusion. Goten and Trunks nodded to each other and started to the poses. Fusion ha. Goten and Trunks called out doing the final poses, but Ash, Paul and Piccolo noticed an error in the second pose. Goten and Trunks glowed together, making a bright light appear. Chi-Chi and Bulma looked surprised. Roshi nodded, seeing this. The two boys' bodies started phasing into one another. This is intense. Vital said as Krillin stood shocked. An explosion of light blinding almost everything. In a moment the light died down. Krillin looked around to the shocked faces of the group. When he looked, he gained the shocked expression as well, seeing what was in front of him. Goten and Trunks had fused, in a fat combined version of the two, with their hair being spiked up with having black hair in the middle and purple on two sides, wearing a white pants, a sash, and a blue vest with yellow padding around the shoulders and neck. Ash, Paul and Piccolo looked dumbfounded seeing this version of their combined brothers. Is he supposed to look like that? Krillin asked, wondering if this was right. I guess so. Yamcha said, unsure. Wow, well he's certainly well equipped, isn't he? Bulma said, dumbfounded as well. Yeah, that's a nice way to put it. Chi-Chi said, just as dumbfounded as Bulma. Hey, I think I get it, he's supposed to look like that. He's built like Majin Buu, a roly-poly body must help to regulate the enormous power at that level, like Buu has one. Krillin said, thinking this is what the fusion was supposed to look like. No doubt, yeah I dig it, check him out, you've got the moves baby, yeah, alright. Yamcha said as the fusion started doing exercises. This is so bizarre. Vital said as this was completely weird to her. The name fusion started to run. Oh yeah, speed test, here we go. Yamcha said as the fusion only got a few feet away before stopping and crouching over, out of breath. The group fell over in disbelief. I think I know what the problem is, Ash, Paul, you both saw it too, right? Piccolo asked. Yeah, we saw. Ash said, knowing what went wrong in the fusion. Yes, we did, Paul said as they all came forward. Huh. The unnamed fusion said. Yeah, we goofed, it's the form. Trunks made a slight error, he did this. Piccolo said, doing the pose where Trunks made the error. The fusion stood there watching. But he shouldn't have fully extended his fingers, he should have done this. Alright, got it. Piccolo said, making sure to show the fusion to keep his hands closed. The fusion didn't know how to respond to this. Good, now go ahead and separated so we can get it right. Well, what are you waiting for? You heard me, separate. Piccolo said, wanting the two boys to separate so they could try again. Ash suddenly realized something. Piccolo, I don't think Dad told us how to separate instantly. Ash told as Piccolo heard and realized that also. Huh, oh right, I see, you're right Ash, Goku never showed us that part. I guess we don't have a choice, we'll just have to wait until the 30 minutes are up. Piccolo said as Ash and Paul stepped up. Well, while we wait, me and Paul can finally fused. Ash said as Piccolo looked at them. Right, we have to see your fusion as well to make sure it's strong enough, let's do it. Piccolo said as Ash and Paul nodded. Everyone watched on. Ash and Paul stood away from each other in their proper places. The powered up. Yes, your energies are perfectly matched, now let's see your fusion. Piccolo said as the boys nodded. Ash and Paul didn't even look at each other before doing the poses with Piccolo watching carefully. Fusion ha! Ash and Paul called out as they did the poses with their tails even doing their own motion, and unlike Goten and Trunks, they did it perfectly. They glowed before an entirely new bright light engulfed the lookout as everyone had to cover their eyes. When the light died down, Piccolo looked only to have his eyes widened. It worked, Piccolo said as the others looked at well. The new fusion that stood there was unlike their brother. This fusion's body was slim with the perfect look, wearing the same outfit as his brother, but the vest was black instead of blue and the sash was black as well, and they had a tail as well. His hairstyle was a mix of Ash's regular base hair but mixed with Paul's Super Saiyan hairstyle. Think of it any way you want. His hair color was black, with it was clearly seen that it had a noticeable purplish tint to it. Even the fusion's tail had the same color. Look it up to see what I mean. The fusion smirked and looked at his hands. Wow, so this feels amazing. The fusion said with his voice having two voices in it. Wow, that's a lot of power. Krillin said, feeling the amount of energy pouring out of this kid. Yeah, it's insane. Yamcha said, feeling overwhelmed. Wow, our sons are so cute looking like that. Bulma said. You can say that again. Chi-Chi said, agreeing with Bulma. Good, your fusion unlike Goten and Trunks were successful. Now we'll wait 30 minutes for your fusion to run out and then you'll try it again as Super Saiyans. Piccolo said, knowing they need to use the Super Saiyans since the base forms might not be enough. Huh, okay then we will, but I'm not just going to sit around Piccolo. The fusion said as Piccolo looked confused. What? Piccolo said as the fusion smirked. Wanna know this fusion's personality? Think of him as a kid Vegito except a little different. I'm going to test out some of my power real quick, like Yamcha said, a speed test first. The fusion said as he crouched before disappearing from sight. Piccolo and everyone else suddenly felt a burst of wind pass them. Up here. The voice of the fusion said as they all looked around before spotting the fusion on top the palace with his arms crossed. I guess I'm too fast for everyone to see now. The fusion said as Piccolo was stunned. He moved so fast, I couldn't see him. Piccolo said as this fusion was truly incredible. Suddenly the fusion was back in the same spot in front of Piccolo. Amazing, right? Glad to know I can impress people. The fusion said as Piccolo looked at him. Well, your speed is impressive, but what about your power? Piccolo asked as the fusion thought it. Let's see, there. The fusion said, seeing a bunch of clouds and focused. He sent a punch out and a blast of wind flew forward separating them. Nice, guess I am strong, but let's be sure. The fusion said as he flared his aura. He powered up so much that the wind blew everyone back. His power shook the lookout. He stopped when he saw a few cracks start to appear on the lookout. Well, I guess that proves that this fusion really is strong. The fusion said as he stopped powering up and his aura disappeared. Amazing, this is better than I had hoped. We may actually get out of this alive. Piccolo said knowing this fusion probably had more than enough power to beat Boo, but he had to make sure. Yeah, we'll destroy that piece of chewing gum, but now till I think I'm ready. The fusion said as Piccolo nodded. That's good, but now we need a name for you. Piccolo said as the fusion blinked, not realizing that. Oh right, well I'm thinking of anything grand, we want to keep this very simple, just call me Pash, sure it doesn't seem too great, but we ain't heard to come up with fancy names. The now named Pash said to the group. Well at least we have a name for them. Chi-Chi said knowing what they're called now. Now we wait. Pash said as he started hovering and started to meditate in place. Alright, spend your time wisely. Piccolo said as he walked away for a bit. The group now over to check out the fusions. They went over to the unnamed fusion of Goten and Trunks. Strange, but you're neither Trunks or Goten, are you? Krillin asked to the fusion. You even have your own set of clothes. Roshi said noticing they get new outfits. What's it feel like being one person? Vital asked. The fusion just looked at everyone. Hey little buddy, your brother's got a name, what about you, you got a name? Yamcha asked to the fusion. Gotenks. The now named Gotenks said giving them a name. Haha, wow see he does have his own name. Chi-Chi said knowing she couldn't come up with one earlier but this was perfect. Time passed on. Pash was still meditating as if thinking about something. Look, I'm hungry, I just wanna eat and take a nap. Gotenks said feeling hungry and tired. He talks like Yajirobe daddy. Marin said seeing the way Gotenks talks reminds her of the fat swordsman. Yeah he sure does, look. Krillin said seeing the fusion suddenly starting to glow. In a second, the fusion diffused back to Goten and Trunks. Goten, thank goodness. Chi-Chi and Bulma said relieved to see their sons unfuse. Pash opened his eyes and landed back on his feet when he felt the two unfuse. Goten and Trunks looked at each other. Did we do it? Trunks asked. I don't know. Goten said not knowing. Guys, you did it, you fused, it was great. Yamcha said as the two boys looked confused. Don't you remember anything? Krillin asked wondering why they didn't know. No. Goten confirmed. Well congratulates, you did it. Vital said knowing the boys did great. Yes, bravo, well done. Mr. Popo said to the boys. Look, we don't have time for idle talk you two, we've got a mission to accomplish got it, now let's get back to work but good first try, use Pash as an example of what a perfect fusion is. Piccolo said walking away as Goten and Trunks blinked. Pash. They looked so see Pash looking at them and they couldn't help but flinch at the power they were sensing from him. Pash sent a smirk at this and just waited. In a minute or two, Pash diffused back to Ash and Paul. Hey you two, how did it feel to fuse? Krillin asked as Ash and Paul looked over themselves. Well it felt amazing, so much power. Ash said remembering exactly what it felt like. Even I have to admit, this fusion may not be as bad as I thought it was. Paul said as even he had to admit, the fusion they did was incredibly strong. Wait so you guys remember, Goten and Trunks didn't remember their fusion but you do. Yamcha asked wondering what the case was. Maybe it was because our fusion was perfect unlike theirs, you need a perfect fusion to remember I guess. Paul said wondering if that was all it took to remember. Well how did you two feel about fusion? Vital asked as the boys thought about that. It was amazing but yet so weird at the same time. Ash said knowing what it like. Yeah, strange when we were fused, not only were we sharing our body but also memoirs. Paul said knowing they saw each other's lives even though it wasn't a lot. Wow, that sounds so weird. Vital said as the boys shrugged, it didn't really matter to them. Come on, it's time to try again. Piccolo said knowing they had to continue. Like before, Ash and Paul waited for Goten and Trunks to go first. Good, let's go. Piccolo said as they went to do the poses and Piccolo watched carefully. Fusion ha. Goten and Trunks said doing the dance again but Piccolo saw another error at the end. The light engulfed the lookout again. When it died down, this time, they all saw a old-looking skinny version of Gotenks this time, not his fat version. Oh no, I can't love that. Chi-Chi said horrified. Why not he's my age? Roshi said thinking nothing was wrong with that. No older. Krillin said as this failure looked way older than Roshi. His ribs are showing, we need to beef him up or something. Yamcha said, knowing they needed to bring this guys some meat. There'll be no beefing up, we're going to wait 30 minutes and try it again, and this time we're going to get it right. Piccolo said as skinny Gotenks started coughing. This is going to be a long one. Piccolo said as he turned to Ash and Paul. Okay, you two, it's your turn to try again, this time as Super Saiyans. Piccolo said as he wanted to see a fusion between Super Saiyans this time around. Alright. Ash and Paul said before flaring into Super Saiyan form. They both stood in the right positions. They started moving. Fusion Ha. They both called out. A flash of golden light appeared this time around, and it was much harder to resist getting blown away. The light died down to reveal Pash once again, but in Super Saiyan form. Well, I'm back and even stronger than before. Pash said, feeling the power of being in his Super Saiyan state. Yes, it was a success again. You two are naturals at this. The hope of surviving this is growing by the minute with you two. Piccolo said, knowing they were having much better success with this than Goten and Trunks were. Pash threw a couple of punches and kicks around before stopping. Maybe I can work with this if I test out this power a bit more. Pash said as he spent his time in his fusion state testing out his power and then meditating again. He was honestly trying to test something out but wasn't sure if it would work. Soon he and Gotenks diffused once again before having to try again. Goten and Trunks stood ready again while Ash, Paul and Piccolo stood to watch for more errors. Boys, ready. Piccolo said as the boys nodded at one another again. They did the dance one last time, and this time, there was no errors. Another bright light engulfed them, covering the lookout again. When it died down, Piccolo looked shocked. Whoa, it worked this time. Piccolo said as he saw that this time, Gotenks was actually slim this time around like his brother was before. Yamcha and Krillin looked shocked, feeling his power. Sure, Pash was stronger, but still. Wow, feel that, what power. He and Pash are the ones alright, there's no doubt about it. Roshi said, amazed with this power coming behind Pash. Gotenks smirked at the praise. Wow, like Pash, he's a cutie. Vital said, seeing the kid. I think he favors Trunks a little bit. What do you think, Chi-Chi? Bulma asked to the other mother. The nose yes, the eyes no. Chi-Chi replied. He's got fabulous energy, does it matter who he looks like, but he does have Goten's hair. Vital said, knowing the hair resembles Goten's. Excellent, now like Ash and Paul did, in 30 minutes from now we'll try the fusion again, only this time you'll be Super Saiyans. Piccolo said, doing the same method he did for Ash and Paul. But Gotenks said wanted something different. Nah, we're not doing this as Super Saiyans. Gotenks said cockily. What? Piccolo questioned as Ash and Paul's eyes widened hearing this. There's no need for it, we're strong enough as it is. Gotenks said with confidence. You little, how dare you, this is a team effort, got it, that's a call we all have to agree on, and I don't agree. It makes no sense to confront unless at your absolute maximum, understand me. Piccolo said, knowing these two are going to make a mistake that'll get them all killed. Yes, but you don't, look, you're scared, but Boo is nothing, I will bring him back dead, see ya. Gotenks said as he started floating up in the air. Wait, no, come back. Piccolo said as Ash agreed. Come back, bro, you don't know what you're doing. Ash called out. Don't have a heart attack. Gotenks said. He's not listening. Mr. Popo said. Clearly. Paul said with annoyance. This was going downhill real quick. Oh good, he's close, 30 minutes should be plenty of time, alright, this is gonna be fun. Gotenks said, feeling Boo's energy, and started flying fast towards it. Now that's fast, whoa. Vital said, seeing him almost out of sight already. Darn it, if he gets killed now, all of our efforts were for nothing. Piccolo said angrily as Ash and Paul looked at each other and nodded. Yeah, you're right, he's reckless for sure, but I wouldn't be least bit surprised if he beat Majin Buu. Krillin said, thinking they could win if they tried right. Me either, I betcha that little guy tears Buu up. Yamcha said, thinking they'll win against Buu for sure. If we're lucky, but what if he doesn't? Piccolo said, only to hear a familiar chant. Fusion Ha. Ash and Paul called out, fusing once again into Pash. Alright, let's go. Pash said with a determined look on his face. Wait, you're not going to go fight Buu as well? Piccolo asked as Pash shook his head. Relax, I'm not going to fight Buu. I'm going to drag that moron back here by his hair if I have to. I'll be fine, Piccolo, I promise. Pash said, flying off the lookout, and after Gotenks trying to stop him from destroying all their chances at victory. Do you think they can stop Boo, or at least keep Gotenks from getting in trouble? Bulma asked, worried about her sons. Pash's objective to get Gotenks back here, not to fight Boo like he said. I trust Pash to do this more than Gotenks, so we'll have to wait. Piccolo said. Sky. That moron, we're fighting to stop this monster and he might destroy all chances at that. When I get my hands on him, I'm going to beat him down myself, well if Boo doesn't do it first. Pash said to himself. He was flying slow, trying not to get sensed by Gotenks, who probably couldn't sense him because of how cocky is he right now. A few minutes later, he arrived where he finally saw the monster he was training to beat, Majin Buu. And he also saw Gotenks. Who was getting his shit absolutely wrecked at the moment. If Gotenks getting thrown into a wall in front above the water was any indication. Well, it looks like I arrived just in time. Pash said as he saw military men started firing on Boo. And Pash could tell that Boo was getting angry. Oh man, this isn't gonna well, Pash said before flaring into Super Saiyan. He focused energy into his right hand and put said hand into a chopping position. He could sense Boo about to attack. He held his hand up before bringing it down. Counter wave. Pash called out, firing a wave of energy towards the gap between Gotenks and Boo. Boo unleashed a huge explosion that was heading towards the city and Gotenks. Just before it reached Gotenks, the counter wave got between them and both attack made contact. Once they did, they stopped each other from moving. The wind from this blew the military men away, but they were alive. The counter wave pushed through the explosion and some of its energy went through and hit Boo, surprising him as he was thrown away quite a bit far. The explosion did damage some parts of the city, but it was still okay. Gotenks looked surprised and amazed for a bit before Pash appeared in front of him, grabbed him by his hair and started flying away. He could clearly see the damage done by Boo, mostly Gotenks' bruised and swollen eye. Whoa, hey, what are you doing? Gotenks asked, frantic. Getting you away from this fight you never should have started. Pash told as he flew fast back towards the lookout with a yelling Gotenks. The lookout. Pash landed back on the lookout, dropping Gotenks to his feet. Wow, they're alive, Krillin said, seeing them back. Did you do it, Gotenks? Chi-Chi asked. Did you beat Majin Buu? Bulma asked as well. Not exactly, he's a little tougher than I thought. Gotenks said, turning to face them. They all went down to the floor, anime style. So you're back, serves you right, you fool, you could have blown our only chance to win. From now on we do things my way. Tomorrow you are going to fight Boo as a Super Saiyan, and until then we train, understood, Trunkton? Piccolo said to the boy. Actually it's Gotenks. Mr. Popo said, correcting Piccolo. What? Piccolo questioned. His name it's Gotenks. Mr. Popo said again. His name is Mud as far as I'm concerned. Piccolo said as making Gotenks look down. Before looking at his brother. Hey Pash, what was that move you used to protect me and those military guys? Gotenks asked everyone's attention again. It's called the counter wave. You know the old saying, a good offense is the best defense. It protected you and those guys while sending some energy to attack Boo. It's a perfect mix of offense and defense. Pash said, though what he didn't say was that he felt a strange sense of nostalgia when he came up with the technique, and he didn't understand and know why. In the battle against Boo, that technique will be useful. Good job you two. Piccolo said as Pash nodded. Thanks, and while I'm in Super Saiyan form, I'm gonna test something, here we go. Pash said as he started powering up. His aura coming to life and sending waves of winds coming, nearly blowing everyone again. In a moment, Pash yelled, making a bright light appear again. When it died down, everyone could see Pash with spiker hair, and electricity sparking around his aura. Alright, I can go Super Saiyan 2 while using fusion, great. Pash said, feeling the power coursing through him. Holy moly. Krillin said, feeling the insane amount of energy that Pash was showing now. Yeah, I don't think I've ever sensed anything this strong before. Yamcha said, feline really overwhelmed with the kid's power. Piccolo just kept getting surprised. He was truly beginning to think that Pash will win against Boo. Seeing them go Super Saiyan 2 makes him hopeful. A while later, both fusions ended and Goten and Trunks were getting first aid from their mothers. They were both crying from the pain while Ash and Paul mediated. At first Paul didn't want to do this, but after sharing through their memories, Ash and Paul gained newfound respect for one another from their training methods, being that Paul could tell that Pasha's counter wave was mostly from Ash's side of the fusion since Ash seemed to be more technique-prone instead of strength-prone like Paul was. So he decided to give the whole meditation thing a try. I can't stand that, it's burning. Trunks said, feeling nothing but pain. Well, if you don't stay still I'll never be able to clean it. Bulma said, cleaning the wound and blowing on it, making Trunks move around in pain. Ow, what did I do? Goten asked in pain as Chi-Chi spanked his behind. Stop it, you know exactly what you did. 10. I'm sorry, but you and Ash are the only things I have left in this world. The next time you wanna go out and do something so reckless, try and remember that, okay? Chi-Chi asked to her second youngest son, not wanting to lose him. Okay, Mom. Goten said, feeling bad now. Did you hear what she said? Bulma asked to her oldest son. Yeah. Trunks said. You both should listen to your mothers. No fighter that has ever won a victory did so using his fist alone. All battles are won before they are even fought, and do you know how? Piccolo asked to Goten and Trunks. By planning. Trunks said. That's right. Piccolo replied. So you're saying that my dad just didn't plan enough, and I run off and do the same thing. That's the last time. From now on I'm doing it right. I have to be smart to win, a smarter fighter than my dad ever way. Trunks said, knowing he probably did the same thing his dad did that got him killed, but now anymore. Bulma looked proud of her son. Paul may not have said anything, but he gave a little smirk. He gained some new respect for his older twin. Piccolo walked forward towards the two and placed his hands on their heads. You are both amazing young men. Through each of your bodies flows the blood of a warrior who brought truth to impossibility. You two, like your brothers, will do the same. Piccolo said as Goten and Trunks smiled. Piccolo fixed their clothes and their injuries disappeared. None of this will happen without all of your efforts. I suggest we begin immediately. Piccolo said, walking back out to the field of the lookout. All right. Goten and Trunks said, running after Piccolo. Good luck, honey. Bulma said to Trunks. Do your best, Goten. Stay strong. Chi-Chi said to her son. Well, I guess it's time to get back into it, Paul. Ash said he stopped meditating and Paul did the same. Yes, and also, this meditation thing isn't bad. I actually feel calmer. Paul said, not actually this calm before, he actually likes it. That's what it's meant for, strengthening the mind. You can see why I feel great all the time. Ash said, walking towards Piccolo. Paul didn't move for a moment. He thought about, this is why Ash was as strong as he was. He never saw Ash training in higher gravity, but yet he was always as strong as he was. Now they were equals, but Ash managed to achieve Super Saiyan 2 before him. Maybe Ash's way of training could help him become even stronger than before. Only time will tell, but for now, he had to focus on destroying Majin Buu first. He followed after Ash. Soon, they got back into things. Now, it's time for the next step. You must try fusing as Super Saiyans like Ash and Paul did. Piccolo told, knowing they needing to do the same as their brothers did. Right. Goten and Trunks said, ready to try. And if you're successful, do not let your ambition control your emotion. You remember what happened last time, don't you? Piccolo said as Goten and Trunks remember clearly, they got stomped. They laughed nervously. Not too smart, huh? Goten said as Piccolo looked stern as Ash nodded and Paul rolled his eyes. Now, go! Piccolo yelled. Goten and Trunks turned into Super Saiyans. Good, your energies are aligned perfectly, now perform the technique. Piccolo said as everyone watched on. Goten and Trunks went towards their positions for the moves. They did the poses. Fusion Ha! Goten and Trunks called out as a bright golden light engulfed the lookout, making them send out a large blast of wind. Everyone had to cover themselves from the energy being sent out. When the wind died down, it was shown that Gotenks was now in Super Saiyan form with his aura flaring. It felt strong to the others, not as strong as Pash was in his Super Saiyan or Super Saiyan 2 forms, but still strong nonetheless. Whoa, that is amazing. Yamcha said, knowing it was amazing, not of the level of Pash but still amazing. Yeah, and on their first try too, Krillin said, getting hopeful again. Yes, it's an impressive transformation, but I'm very curious about your control. Piccolo said, but was stopped when Gotenks put his hand up. Not so fast, it's dangerous showing off in a place like this. Gotenks said, getting cocky again. What? Piccolo questioned, shocked. Oh no, here we go again. Ash said, knowing where this was going. Of course. Paul said, face palming. Any respect he gained earlier for his older twin was just disappeared. We don't wanna blow everything up, do we? Better fly someplace else. Gotenks said before flying off the lookout. No, Gotenks, darn it, Ash, Paul. Piccolo called out, not saying what needed to be done before flying off the lookout. We get it. Ash and Paul said before doing the fusion dance and fusing back into Pash. They turned Super Saiyan before flying after Piccolo and his brother. That ego, he's gotta do something about that. Krillin said, knowing the boy's ego was getting the better of them way too much. Below lookout. Gotenks was outspeeding Piccolo. Their speed is better than their control. Piccolo said, trying to keep up but wasn't fast enough. Don't worry, I got this. Pash said, flaring into Super Saiyan 2, making their speed increase by a lot. In a moment, they were already in sight of Gotenks. All right of this, hey you two, stop already. Pash said, seeing the two are getting out of control. Bro, what are you doing? Gotenks said as Pash grew a vein. What am I doing? What are you doing? Didn't you say you being smarter earlier? This isn't very smart, now it's time to put an end to this nonsense. Pash said before disappearing from view. Gotenks looked confused for a moment before feeling a fist hit his cheek, sending him flying towards the ground and crashing. Pash landed on the ground where Gotenks had half his body in the ground. You see, this happens when you decided to do something stupid. Pash said, grabbing his brother's leg and pulling him out of the dirt. Hey, what was that for? Gotenks asked, wondering why his brother punched him. Because you ain't listening. You want to beat Majin Buu. Well, actually listen this time around. I'm not going to save you this time if you get beaten up again. Now let's wait for Piccolo to show up. Pash said as Gotenks decided to wait since he didn't want to get punched again. His brother punches very hard. In a minute or two, Piccolo finally landed where the two were waiting. Hey Piccolo, what's up? How's it hanging? Gotenks asked, only to get a bonk on the head from his brother. You were just wasting energy with what you were doing in time. Piccolo said, knowing these two people putting their plans in danger again. I won't need a lot of time to beat Majin Buu, can't you see how strong I am? Gotenks said as Pash face palmed. Of course I see it. Piccolo said, knowing that they were strong indeed from being Super Saiyans. So, guess I passed the test then. Gotenks said, getting up from the rock he was on. No wait. Piccolo said, trying to stop them. I'm sorry Piccolo, I know you're right, I really should stop wasting time. Gotenks said, flaring his aura. No Gotenks, don't go, he's going to get himself killed. Piccolo said, seeing them go but felt wind pass him. Gotenks was going before seeing someone appeared in front of them. Huh. Gotenks said, seeing Pash appear right in front of him. Sorry bro, I warned you. Pash said before slamming his fist into Gotenks' gut hard. Gotenks had the wind knocked out of him before diffusing back into Goten and Trunks. Pash caught them both before flying back to Piccolo. Let's go back to the lookout. Pash said as Piccolo nodded and grabbed Trunks before they both started flying away. The lookout. Within a few minutes, Pash and Piccolo made it back to the lookout. The others saw Goten and Trunks unconscious and Pash explained. After a while Pash diffused back to Ash and Paul. Ash yawned. I'm tired, it's time to go to sleep, we'll train more later. Ash said, heading to the same room where Goten and Trunks were put into after knocking them unconscious. You're right, I feel tired after all that training, let's get some rest and continue later. Paul said, laying on the wall and going to sleep. Ash got on the bed and closed his eyes as well. They'll get stronger using the fusion. And as Pash, they'll avenge everyone Buu has killed. Including Vegeta and Gohan, count on it.